In this half hour, KwaZulu-Natal flood victims are now trying to piece their lives back together. They're appealing for food, shelter, as well as basic necessities. The SANDF, as well as Gift of the Givers, have been on the ground helping those in need. Meanwhile, a provincial day of prayer will be held today to remember the 448 lives lost. Our reporters on the ground monitoring the situation. We're now joined by one of our reporters, KZN Floods. KZN, a very good morning to you. How have donations been coming in? Because I know NGOs such as Gift of the Givers seem to be the preferred agents to actually ensure there's social relief.
That's right. There has been quite an outpouring of support from the public in general as they've been providing these items and making monetary donations. And there are a couple of avenues in which they've been able to do that. One of them is through the government channel. The other is through organizations like Gift of the Givers. And you know, if you look at social media and you have some of these conversations, there seems to be a bit of skepticism around whether that money should be channeled to government. People have been expressing concerns over that, with a reassurance coming from government saying that all of the money and all of the donations would reach those that are affected. But there's also another side to it, like here at the Virginia airport. This is the base where the search and rescue operations are situated. And it's at areas like this we've also noticed people coming through and making donations not just to the victims, but also those that are helping the victims. So in this case, the search teams that are here, community members have set up stations around here where they have put together food parcels and drinks and so on, because there's a lot of work going on here. There are lots of areas in the province that need to be reached during this time, and as a result of that, there are people here that want to make sure that those rescuers are in fact taken care of, as well as the dogs, a very important part of these operations, the canine element when it comes to these searches and looking for bodies. Unfortunately, we've received some reports yesterday that there were at least 2 of these canines that were injured during these searches, and fortunately there are vets on standby. So I think, you know, the point I'm trying to drive home here is that there's been such a huge amount of support that's been coming through from ordinary people who have been helping the communities that are affected, that have been helping the searchers themselves, that have been helping the dogs, and I think that is something that needs to be applauded.
No, it's honestly heartwarming, but also the controversy now around the trust deficit insofar as government is concerned, because like you touched on a bit, many people are a bit apprehensive to donate to government. They would say we'd rather have trustworthy implementation or implementing agents in the form of NGOs, because that way we know our donations will reach the people it's intended to reach. I mean, this is a big conversation, honestly, Dessa.
No, it definitely is, and it's unfortunate, and I think we have our fingers have been burnt previously when it's come to COVID-19 and how the funds were misused in that instance, and that's why there is this perception, and that's why the public feels this way. But you touched on another important point, which is the element of NGOs and what they have been bringing to the table. In handing out aid, in working here on the ground, in all facets of this operation, they've been incredible in providing the essential services and providing this kind of humanitarian aid. For example, they're working hand in hand with other agencies to drop off these food parcels. The SANDF is involved, the SAPS, as you know. There are also private individuals that are here. So what they're doing is, in some of the areas that are inaccessible, they are trying to reach those areas by aircraft. And if you just look over here to the air side, there's a number of aircraft that are available for use here. The SANDF says it has about 7 that is provided for the operation. The SAPS also has its own aircraft that it will be using here. So those will be used for many purposes, in both rescues, in the recovery of bodies, and getting members out to where they need to go to, and to come back to what we are talking about, to also distribute some of those food parcels and that aid that is very much needed right now.
Dessa, let's just rope in Letiua, my colleague, who is at the Day of Prayer. Letiua, good morning. Has the Day of Prayer in fact started? We know that the Premier wanted this day to sort of stand in solidarity with those who have lost loved ones. Has it begun?
Well, Mfundo, for now the prayer has not begun, but families and also authorities are slowly arriving here at the Durban Exhibition Centre. We are aiming for 10. I just spoke to the media liaison for the Premier's office, who did inform us that they are hoping that the prayer will start at 10. They will be remembering those families that unfortunately lost their loved ones during the floods last week. You'd remember that the province has lost around 448 people due to the floods. Yesterday we were visiting different communities in Inanda, which is one of the most affected townships in the city of Durban. We had a chance to speak to some families who were also in a prayer yesterday, where communities came together and they were praying for those families. I had a chance to speak to the families, and they were saying that for now they are just in the middle of trying to plan for those funerals, and they are also urging authorities to give them a hand in trying to bury their loved ones. There's also a lot of people that still remain missing, and today's prayer is also going to be focusing on that, where authorities and also faith organizations will be praying for those that still remain missing to be found. We do know that there are fears that over 200 people still remain missing in the province, and rescue operations are underway, where they are trying to find those missing people. Families are also urging for rescue teams to please just continue looking for their loved ones, as they are still out there. We have spoken to families over the past week as well, where they were sharing their pain of not being able to find their missing loved ones. This prayer, of course, is going to be focusing on just praying for those bereaved families and also praying for those missing to be found.
You know, Letiwe, you touch on a very important point when you say families are urging at least government to come to the table insofar as preparations for those funerals are concerned. Because we heard one minister after the other pledging the financial support, but at the back of our minds, most of us just thought, yes, the money is there. But the implementing aspect, I think it might take longer than many would assume, because it's honestly a massive operation to now disperse these funds. They're coming from national. So clearly, by what you're saying, some of the families are yet to actually receive the funds.
Of course, Mfundo, yesterday in Emakhobeni, in Inanda, there was a prayer that was held by the community, and a lot of families that have been affected by the floods and that have lost their loved ones were also in attendance. While speaking to them, they did say that they have not actually received any help. But there were government officials at the prayer who did urge families to write down their names, and also urge them to be present today here at the prayer, where authorities will go to them and just ask them for information as to what assistance they need. What we do know is that government is urging people to visit the eThekwini municipality offices here in the province or here in the city of Durban, where they can then bring the documentation that is needed, and also for authorities to know which families have been affected by this. I do know that the eThekwini municipality announced yesterday that each family that does need assistance with burial will be receiving an amount of 15,000 rand. But those families will need to go to eThekwini officials and also visit eThekwini municipality offices, where they can say that they need assistance with burial.
And that's where we think there'll be a bit of a hold-up insofar as execution is concerned. But Letiwe, thank you very much for that update. That's my colleague Letiwe Mdluli, who's out at the Durban Exhibition Centre, as well as my other colleague Desan Thalthia, who's at the Virginia Airport.